I could twirl you a Corbin Burns Milwaukee Brewers gem and tell you how good this fight's going to be, or I could be up front and tell you don't expect all that much. We have a big-time matchup at lightweight between the former Ultimate Fighter Latin America Season 3 finalist Claudio Puelles taking on Gruetzemacher. And I don't know anybody in the UFC that has a more fitting nickname. Maybe Francis Ngannou, the Predator?
Damage Elkins.
Yeah, Damage Elkins. But Gruetzemacher won his last fight on pure grits and grits alone. I mean, you look at the fight that he just had against Rafa Garcia. Loses the first round. Handily. Almost finished. And then in the second and third round, it's like he just smelled a dryer sheet and he's just feeling happy, feeling good, and everything's normal. We're going to have a great day with that dryer sheet. Gruetzemacher, a guy that trains out of New Bern. I mean, he's a North Carolina guy. He spent some time at some different gyms. But for Chris, he's just one of those guys that, listen, fight in, fight out, fairly consistent with his approach. I mean, that's all the way from the Ultimate Fighter Season 22 when he lost by finish to Artem Lobov, yes, the greatest of all time. A guy that would fight who? Baranchak in real boxing? Well, or was it bare knuckle? Whatever it was ridiculous. I'm tired of the boxing. But when I look at Gruetzemacher, that's actually one of his major skills, is his boxing, his forward pressure. His striking defense isn't all that great, but his chin is, and that's what's able to get him the wins over Lavares, over Joe Lozon in the UFC. That Lozon fight, UFC 223, that was a big-time feather in his cap. Now, when I look at the 5-on-in, it's 2-3. And when I look at the losses, okay, he gets submitted by Chaz Skelly. That's fine. He gets submitted by Davi Hamosh. Well, if you're going to lose the Davi, it's probably by submission. And he gets knocked out by Alexander Hernandez a year ago. I mean, it might happen like that. That's just fine. That's where this fight's really weird, because this is a crossroads fight. If Puelles loses, the UFC's not going to cut him. He's a guy out of Peru that's still very young. Again, the craziest part about this is the fact that Puelles fights Martin Bravo, loses on the finale of Tough Latin America Season 3. He was 19 at the time. He's only 25 right now. And for Puelles, good wrestling, good striking, complete package. Now training at a Sanford MMA, really trying to pull those things together. Training with the likes of Rafael Fiziev, who's on this card. So a lot of good things for Puelles. But in his last fight, Matt, you want to talk about one of the more forgettable fights that you've ever seen in your life? Claudio Puelles, Jordan Levitt. It wasn't much.
It really wasn't much. And that's the weird thing about Puelles. He's got a lot of promise when you think about his skill set, but he hasn't really been able to demonstrate the full potential of his game yet in the cage. And that's why this fight against Gruetzemacher will be so important. Because for Gruetzemacher, if you beat him, at least it means that you belong. It's not some massive achievement to beat Gruetzemacher, but it's a really good UFC caliber win. And when we look at these young sort of up-and-coming guys, those are all you need. Like, I would much rather you go out there and beat Gruetzemacher in a close decision fight that just blew the doors off some guy coming off Contender Series, because at least beating Gruetzemacher in a long fight is going to at least tell me a lot more about your game. The thing about Gruetzemacher is that he's kind of frustrating to watch, because yeah, he's good at boxing, he's got good hands, but he gets hit a lot on the feet. He's got good wrestling, but his jiu-jitsu's not great. Like, again, it's one of these games where not all of his skills really complement each other to their fullest of potentials. It is odd too, because with Gruetzemacher, he's the male Alexis Davis. I guess that's the best way to describe it. Like, if you're a really technical striker who has bad cardio and you've been known to panic wrestle when your cardio gets bad, you don't want to fight Gruetzemacher, and hopefully your manager knows that. If you do, though, he's great at defending takedowns, creating space after he does create those takedowns, or after he does defend those takedowns, and then making you pay for those attempts. But this will be a really interesting matchup, because in the past, Gruetzemacher, at least his last matchup, he would defend the takedown and then look really good on the feet. With Puelles, it'll be interesting to see if he has really good success on the feet. He probably won't even worry about going for the takedown. And if Gruetzemacher's the one who might start to at least panic wrestle or be the one looking to grapple, that's going to play into Claudio's at least more well-rounded game. And the last thing I'll say, Gruetzemacher's cardio is going to be a really big factor in this fight, because he can weaponize it, but it's a very steady pace. It's not like he's someone who's going to make you really feel his presence in the cage, but if you do have suspect cardio yourself, it's going to make him look like a marathon runner.
The craziest part about this too, and I can't understate it, again, Puelles was on The Ultimate Fighter. He beat Marcelo Rojo in the I was going to say co-main of it, but in the semifinals of that, to fight Martin Bravo. Like, he has good experience. He has good wins. The weird part about it, though, so he loses to Bravo. That's 5 years ago. And then he takes a lot of time off. He fights Felipe Silva. That's one of the biggest comeback wins you're ever going to see. Just record on a page, he wins by submission over Felipe Silva. He even gets a performance of the night bonus. He gets lit up on the feet. Silva was a really good Muay Thai striker. I mean, he still is, but he's old now. He's not in the UFC. But in that fight, Puelles' eye swollen right up, but he still ends up getting the win. Then he takes a long time off again. He fights Marcos Mariano. And you might go, do I know that guy? Like, haven't I heard that name? Didn't the UFC guys tell me a lot about him? They did. He came into the UFC at 6-4. He left at 6-6. He was terrible. 30-25 by all three judges were the scores for that fight against Mariano. And you know what? Let's have a little bit of fun. What were the total strikes in that fight? 101-5 were the total strikes. Puelles had 10 minutes and 1 second of control time. And then in the Levitt fight, 3 judges scoring it, 29-28 for Puelles. Again, round 1 Levitt, round 2, round 3 Puelles. The big thing that I had in that fight, going into that fight, I picked Puelles. We different on the pick, but whatever, is the fact that he goes for high crotch single legs like they're going out of style, which Chris Gruetzemacher actually defends very, very well. He did it with the 2 that Lozon went for in their fight, ends up getting the finish by forcing it on the feet. The one big difference, though, Joe Lozon actually did have success with his hands. I was going to say he didn't, but he actually did in that fight.
He just couldn't accept the damage anymore.
No, that's it. Claudio Puelles is a very competent striker, but again, I wouldn't side with him too much in this fight. So, let's have a look at the odds for this one, because Puelles opened a -150 favorite. He's a -109 or thereabouts. For Gruetzemacher, open a +130. He's about a -120 favorite. Listen, we're looking at the Tapology votes. It's a surprise to us, there to you. I'm going to set the over-under at 65% Puelles. What are you saying?
I think they'll be under. Hopefully people respect Gruetzemacher.
Look at that.
No.
1,219 total votes. 79% Puelles. 76% by decision for the 21% that have Gruetzemacher. 72% by decision. So, Matt, the votes aren't even close, but the odds now favoring Gruetzemacher. Who's your pick here?
This is a hard fight to predict because Claudio Puelles, okay, if you stack all of his skills together, it's probably going to come to a higher number than if you stack all of Gruetzemacher's skills together. Like, he's the more skilled athlete out of the 2. He's the more explosive out of the 2. He's the younger guy out of the 2. But stylistically, this is one of those matchups where if he starts to fade at all, like if you give Chris Gruetzemacher an inch, he's going to take a mile. I can't believe I just said that about Chris Gruetzemacher, but it is the truth. And how many times have we seen this where you have the young, promising prospect fighting that old fighter who has really good cardio? They end up losing the first round just to roar back in round 2 and 3. It seems to happen every other event. So, against my best judgment, I actually think we're going to pick Chris Gruetzemacher in this one.
Claudio Puelles has this fight. Sanford MMA going to train him right. Henry Hoof, Greg Jones, and the team. Yeah, I think they're going to have the right game plan in mind. And I think for a guy like Puelles, who trained for the longest time in his native Peru, I think it's such a big-time move to Sanford. And for him to be active, he's a very special fighter to watch. So for me, I've got Puelles. I think he's going to be able to do some decent work on the feet as long as he doesn't get tagged in the first round. Again, like you said, round 2, round 3, Gruetzemacher, one of the older guys at 35 that can actually weaponize his pace. He's got that 10-year age gap. I don't see that playing out very well for him against Puelles. I've been wrong before. Look what happened to Rafa Garcia, but for me, I've got Puelles.
I just think stylistically, again, Puelles is the more skilled fighter out of these 2, but I really do think cardio is that big of a factor in this matchup to where if Gruetzemacher could just not get taken down in that first round so that Puelles feels his pace throughout those first 5 minutes, I think the next 10 will be much easier for him.
The pick is split. I've got Peru's Puelles to get the win. Matt has North Carolina's own. Gruetzemacher, you let us know down below in the comments section who you have in this pivotal below top 30 lightweight matchup between Claudio Puelles and Chris Gruetzemacher. Big time fights on the scene, on the card in the co-main event, ranked lightweights. You're not going to want to miss out. So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.